this is the Mighty OB'a Pat Freeman right here on 1080 AM WFO Radio and clbTV with our weekly sports update. We have a lot to talk about here very quickly. We're now getting into the mock part of what our drafts are talking about for the Buffalo Bills, and I think they're by position of need. I think the position of need for the Buffalo Bills is defensive tackle. When you're last against the run, you need to get your defensive line in order. Our pass rush is terrible, but against the run is our biggest weakness on defense. And I think for the next couple of weeks, we're going to look at the rankings of the position. The number one ranked defensive tackle that I think fits for the Buffalo Bills is Nick Fairley from Auburn, but he will not be there. This is probably the number one overall pick in the draft. Next, I think, is Marcel Darius from Alabama, and then Stephen Paya from Oregon State. Let's look at the size of these guys, and they're very consistent. Nick Fairley is a trimmed down 6'5", 300-pounder, runs a 4.9 40. Marcel Darius from Alabama is 6'4", 306 pounds, runs 4.85 40. I like that kind of speed for defensive tackles. Stephen Paya from Oregon State is 6'1", 311, 4.95. Now, the number 4th ranked defensive tackle, a guy I think the Bills could possibly get in the 2nd or 3rd round, is Drake Nevis from LSU. He's 6'2", a little bit too light for me at 285 pounds, and a little bit too slow at a 5-second 40. But we're talking about defensive tackle. I think one of his biggest problems in my eyesight for Drake Nevis is his weight. 285 pounds is not big enough for me. I think you've got to be a little bit more stout for the NFL. Another defensive lineman is Corey Lugitt from Illinois, and Christian Ballard from Iowa, which is another guy I think the Bills could get. He's got a good frame, 6'5", 300 pounds, runs a 4.85 40. These are your top 6 ranked guys coming off the board. Now, this is a guy that I think the Buffalo Bills need to target if they possibly trade down. I think he is turning heads. This is Marvin Austin from North Carolina. He is 6'3", 310 pounds, runs a 5-second 40. This is a playmaker. Let me tell you something. If Marvin Austin, before the draft, will be one of the first defensive tackles off the board, the Buffalo Bills need to target this guy. If you need defensive tackles, you're terrible against the run, I want Marvin Austin on my team. He was suspended because he talked to an agent out of North Carolina. This is a good football player. Also, Jarrell Cassie from USC, 6'1", 305 pounds. Jarrell Poe from Ole Miss, 6'2", 340 pounds. This is a guy the Bills should get in the 2nd or 3rd round. Jarvis Jenkins from Clemson, 6'4", 350. Phil Taylor from Baylor, 6'4", 340 pounds. And the sleeper that we've been talking about that I think the Buffalo Bills really need to look at is Kenrick Ellis from Hampton. He's 6'5", 340 pounds. And Lawrence Guy from Arizona, 6'5", 300 pounds. This is my top 15. Top 15 defensive tackles. The one that I think is going to fall to the Buffalo Bills is Marcel Darius from Alabama. 6'4", 306 pounds. He should be on the board. In between there is going to be a crapshoot on depending on what Buddy Nix does. But the sleeper that I'm looking at is Kenrick Ellis and possibly Phil Taylor. Kenrick Ellis from Hampton, 6'5", 340 pounds. Kenrick Ellis is a dynamic football player. He comes from a small school. This is a guy that I think is going to do quite well in the draft, and I think he's one that the Buffalo Bills can get somewhere in this draft. Also, Phil Taylor from Baylor, 6'4", 340 pounds. These are big guys, stout against the run. You need big guys in the middle, along with Jarrell Troop and Alex Carrington, who you drafted last year. These guys should be a great mix. With Dave Wannstedt being hired as the assistant head coach, I'm looking for great things from this Buffalo Bills team next year. This is my mock draft concentrating on position, my top 15 at the defensive tackle position. Freeman's mock draft for the Buffalo Bills, top 15 defensive tackles in the draft. Pay attention to the Mighty OB'a before the draft. one or two of these guys are going to be in the Buffalo Bills uniform. You know I cover the Buffalo Bills, but if you're looking at other NFL teams, top 15 defensive tackles from the Mighty OB'a. We'll see you next week on my weekly update. That's all for us this week. Defensive tackles in the books for the 2011 draft.